The nonprofit is working to improve the safety of pedestrians and cyclists all across the state. As WKYT Samantha Valentino shows us, they're bringing together leaders and advocates from both rural and urban communities to discuss how to best keep people safe.
Bike Walk Kentucky is a nonprofit organization advocating for safe bicycling and walking across the Commonwealth.
From my perspective, I'm seeing a need to educate a lot of people of how to make their communities bike and pedestrian friendly.
That's why Bike Walk Kentucky is hosting its first summit in 5 years.
Bike Walk Kentucky is a conference that will have over 300 people from across the state of Kentucky, with the goal of connecting leaders and advocates to help make our rural and urban communities safer, healthier, and more active.
Keith Levin and Dr. Sharon Brown are both Bike Walk Kentucky board members. The summit will be at Transylvania University on August 15th and 16th.
The number of fatalities and serious injuries are on an increase, not only in Kentucky, but across the country. And so we're hoping to have a lot of representatives from Kentucky Transportation Cabinet to help them design roads, our roads, and provide sidewalks for pedestrians and making that more accessible, making our transportation system more accessible.
This year's summit will include national speakers and more than 40 breakout sessions.
We hope to connect people's ideas and that they're doing in their communities across the state, where they can actually show and share successful education programs and safety programs in their community, so that, again, we can encourage more people to be out on their bikes and walking and hiking also.
In Lexington, Samantha Valentino, WKYT.
Bike Walk Kentucky says the summit being held in Lexington is a great opportunity for people to visit the city's Town Branch Trail, which consists of dedicated bike and pedestrian paths. To register for the summit, you can visit this story right now inside the WKYT News app.